Hello, hello, and welcome to the Color Whisperer Show, where we talk about all things home and healing. Today, we have a very exciting show. So, if you've been watching the show for a while, you know that I do personality types in interior design. We've got another personality type program we're going to be learning about today. It's called the bank system. And it helps you with having those difficult conversations. It's getting close to Christmas. Are there family conversations that are hard? Maybe if you knew a better way to talk to them using language that they understood more, they could relate more, you could solve some of those. What if every time you went to a sales meeting, you knew the right way to approach it? That's what we're going to learn about today. We have the honor of having Michelle Lee Murta here with us today. So welcome, Michelle.
Hi, Jeanette.
Hello. Hello. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited for being here. So thank you for having me.
Yay. So this is really interesting, this whole bank system. And I know a little bit about it, but I want you to explain it. So what is this bank system, first of all?
So it is reverse engineered personality science, and it's actually the only methodology in the world that's scientifically validated to predict buying behavior. So what makes people buy and buy into you? And that's pretty much how it started. And then it morphed into this movement because of the results people were getting, not only with their business, but with their personal life.
Wow. Now, I know how you got into this. This made a huge impact on your life. So tell us that story.
Well, it was actually accidental. So I had lost my job, had pretty much no money, and was trying to build a business. And I actually went to a conference and I met Sherry Tree, who is the one who created this. And I saw her speak and she blew me away. And she had these 4 little magic cards, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the missing link. That's what I needed. And so at the time, all I could buy were these cards and her book called Why They Buy. And I was like, okay, great. I'm going to run with this. And I was winging it and trying to do the best I could. And the system is very simple. However, it goes really deep. And I only knew not even the basics, right? So I ended up meeting someone at a networking call, and she was a certified coach and trainer. And then I realized there was a program. So I actually came into this to help me with my business. And what happened was, the first day, I did realize why I blew a deal for $180,000 that I needed more than air itself. But my son had come home from college and he didn't want to be here. He wanted to go back to school. For 18 years, we had struggled communicating and getting along. And what I realized that very day was why. We were completely wired from start to finish differently. And so every time we tried to communicate, we were speaking from a different perspective in a different language. And so everything ended up in conflict. And that day when he walked through the door, I said, I am so sorry. I have done it wrong for 18 years. And I pulled out my cards. I had him crack his code. It was exactly what I thought. And then I lined up mine. And so each one of these were the opposite.
Wow. So your values were off and how you communicated was off.
Absolutely. And it was every single day. So me trying to be that fun, exciting mom, I would go and pick him up from school unexpectedly. I would take him to the toy store, and I literally didn't take into account his core values because I didn't know what they were from the time I picked him up from school and didn't let him know. So then we go to the toy store. My youngest son loved me. I'd be running around the store, riding around on the little bike, shooting hoops, playing with the toys, and he would be in tears. And I chalk it up to he's hungry, he's tired, like, you don't want to be around me. When the fact of the matter was, I wasn't respecting him or his core values. I knew everything he liked, he didn't like, but I didn't understand his wiring system. And that's what was the key. So we just show up expecting people to be just like us, and they're not.
No. So what does bank mean? What does the bank system do?
So when you look at these 4 cards,
Yes.
every single human is made up of all 4.
Yes.
So there's 24 different combinations that someone can show up in. So when you look at Blueprint, they're inside the box. They value things like structure, stability, systems, planning. They follow the rules. They're very organized, and they hate risk. The next code is action. Well, the actions blew up the box, right? They're the movers, the shakers, millionaire makers. They just want to have fun and flexibility and spontaneity and action. They are the ones who talk fast, drive fast, act fast. They don't plan anything. So like you can see where the difference is in the language. One speaks German, one speaks French.
Right?
The nurturing, right? Think of yellow, sunshine, rainbows. They recycled the box. They baked the pie, they put it inside, wrapped it up, put a bow on top, and they gave it away. They're all about teamwork and relationships and authenticity, personal growth, making the world a better place. And then we have the knowledge. They're not inside the box. They're not outside the box. They didn't recycle it. They engineered it. Without them, there wouldn't be a box. And they value things like learning, self-mastery, education, research and development, technology. So each one, we associate 12 values with them. And when you crack the code of that person, you crack the code of how they need to be communicated to. And that's how the bank system worked. And Sherry originally created it for sales. And then it morphed into everyone was blowing up their business and doing fantastic. But on the back end, it was saving their relationships with their husband, their wife, their spouse, their partner, their children, their friends. And it became a movement to truly make people matter.
Yeah. I was married to a knowledge, and my first is action, and I would get nuts because, I'm working on my business, and I'm like, I have to do something. And he's like, no, sometimes you just have to do nothing. And I'm like, well, if I do nothing, nothing will change. If I do something, it may not change, but it has to change. Like something's going to, like I can't keep going in the same direction. I can't do nothing. I can't stand still. And so we, there were times when I was just like, we can't do this. Like, yeah, I understand you're being you. Now, in my codes, it's winter, spring, summer, and fall. So he was a summer. And so we used to say, I just look at him and say, it's really hot in here. And the translation is, I know you're not doing anything wrong. I know you're just being you. And you're driving me crazy right now. And like, the temperature's got to change or I'm going to blow up. And vice versa. I'm in autumn. So he would just look at me and say, it's really windy in here right now. And then that was my clue to stop and check and say, okay, is this something I can, do I really have to be doing 6 things at once? Do I really have to be pushing, can I take this moment and stop and relax? And it was an awareness of like, wait a second, and it's his version of, hey, I can't take how much you're doing. And if you don't stop, I'm going to scream. We were at a party one time. His boss hires mostly summers. And so it was a company party and, they're saying goodbye. And I just was like, I looked at like 20 minutes later, we're still saying goodbye. And I'm just like, I looked at him and I said, it's really hot in here. And the guy who owned the house, oh, we'll put the air on for you, Jeanette. And I'm like, that's okay. I'm in the air conditioning. It's really hot in here.
Oh, that's good. That's good. But that a lot of times that's what happens in marriages. Opposites attract, right? And what's interesting is that we can, because we're all four, we can shift and flow in and out of those different codes. So how do you understand and how do you meet people where they are 100% of the time?
Yeah.
And if you understand and learn bank, you're able to do that, which causes less conflict, less stress, better results, more success. And then you become the best version of yourself because now you're mastering the skills of people and communication. Like, people study all these different things, right? Which are great. I'm
Right.
all about learning and becoming a better person. And even if you look at sales, right? People learn how to sell instead of learning why do people buy. And when you learn the sales strategies, and they're great, right? You need to understand that too. But they're learning how to sell from someone else's perspective. What's important is the person across from you. What do they need? It's not about me. It's not about what's important to me, but we show up selling people on what we love.
Yes. Yes. I have an interior design client. She's very knowledge based. Knowledge is her second. So her first is action, but she requires a lot of knowledge. And with my design, I do so much of it intuitively. And she's always asking me, so what's your logic behind make this decision? I'm like, I kissed the Blarney Stone a few decades ago. And let me tell you, that comes in handy sometimes, because I'm like, and then, but I have to think about it. It's like, okay, I mean, there's a reason why I made the decision that I made, but it's not conscious for me. And I have to go in and say, okay, well, what's the purpose of this? Why do I want this? Or do I not want this? And so I have to slow down and make sure I give her the amount of information that she needs to make a very action-oriented decision. She doesn't need a whole encyclopedia about it, but she does need to know the Cliff Notes version of why is this the best decision?
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it?
And once you learn what somebody's code is, my ex, I would never just come to him and say, here, make a decision quick. I'm like, I would go do all the research and stuff. And like, if we were making a big purchase, I'd get the 3 or 4 bids. I'd do all the research on whatever it was. I would do all that stuff. And then I'd sit down with him and say, okay, this is what I found out about this. This is what I found out about this. This is what I found out about this. This is my feelings on this. This is my feeling. He didn't really care about that part, but that was how I process stuff. So, but I would sit down and I would give him all the knowledge and from my perspective, but also the perspective that he needed. And then and then we could have a discussion but I would never say, I need you to make a decision on this. Like, he's not going to. He's not
Right.
going to. And he can wait me out like nobody's business because there's no anxiety for him to wait. There's zero anxiety for him to wait. Now, making me wait, that creates a lot of anxiety.
Well, absolutely. And I'm glad you said that because there's 2 things, right? You said you had to slow down. So with the knowledge personality type, you have to slow down. Actions run them over. They split their brain. They lost them at hello, right? And so nothing's making sense.
Right.
And things have to make sense. And the other thing that I loved you said is that you said, this is how I feel. And you said he doesn't really care about that because he's making decisions based on logic and thinking.
Right.
Not feeling. So
right. And it's not that he's an uncaring guy, but that's not where he makes decisions from.
Exactly. So then it's not personal, it's personality. So with my son, he functioned in his first 2 codes were blueprint knowledge.
Oh, wow.
So
that's
when
opposite of you completely.
Correct. And then nurturing action was last. So when you look at that, even giving him a hug, he was like, don't touch me. And so even as a small child, and I was working from the emotional side, I'm like, what did I do wrong as a parent? Why don't you love me? Like, what is happening?
Right. And you're a very huggy person.
Right. Because I'm functioning I operate from the 2 emotional codes. So that just shift in perspective was mind blowing to me because I was like, oh my God, I've been loving him the wrong way. Everyone needs love differently.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people say to me, well, I don't want to change the person I am. And I'm like, you're not changing who you are. You're respecting the other person that's sitting across from you. If you went to a foreign country, would you learn the language of the people, or would you expect them all just to adapt to your language?
Right. If I went to my ex and said, I need to make a decision right now, like he'd just walk away. He couldn't, his brain would explode. He cannot do it. And it's not that he, and if you said, okay, Jeanette, he's a mathematician, and it's no problem for him to spend a week doing one math problem. Oh my God, I get hives just thinking about it. What? Like, no. I like, what do you mean you want to just focus on one thing for a whole week? I can't. I can't.
Oh my gosh, no way. No way.
Right?
I couldn't do it
Right?
either. Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way in hell. And so if you were to sit me with this math problem that it took a week, which I can't even fathom how long that is, or what it's way above my math skills, no doubt. But if you said, okay, you're just going to focus on this one task for the next 40 hours, I couldn't do it.
Oh, no way.
I couldn't. I'd have to go take a walk. I'd have to interrupt it with something else. Like, I can't. And by that same token, I have a list of 20, 30 things to do in any given day. And I'm crossing them off. And he looks at that same list of 20, 30 things and is like, how do you do all that in one day?
Oh yeah, for sure. And
it's mind boggling to him.
Right. And then in my old business, like I would have to put bids in and I would have to fill out spreadsheets. And the one, like I was like, I can't do this. I was like, you know what? Screw it. I don't even want the business. I'm like, this is ridiculous. There's too many rules. Look at all the rules they have. And I was losing my mind. Right. Finally, I had to give it to, I was like, listen, my friend who worked with me, I gave it to her. I was like, and she's higher blueprint. I was like, listen, you need to take care of this because I can't. I'm tapped out.
And I think it's good that we have to balance each other out. One of the comments I get a lot is, oh, I'm no good at design, Jeanette. And I said, well, that's why I have a job. I'm not good at what you do. Right? If everybody was good at design, I wouldn't have a job. If everybody was good at what you did, I said, we're all unique people with different talents for a reason. And there's no shame in not being good at being an interior designer. And there is a lot of people come to me, oh, my house is like, you're calling the house doctor for a reason, because you want it fixed. You don't go to the doctor and say, oh, I'm sorry, doctor, my health is in bad shape and da da da. No, you're going to the doctor because you're sick and you want to get fixed. And so there's a lot of people out there that don't have a creative bone in their body. Yay for me. I couldn't do what they do. I've had lots of clients. I couldn't come close to doing what they do. I don't want to try even. It's like that. Let's do one math problem for a week. Oh my God, please just kill me. It's just like, I could not do it.
Oh my gosh. It's so true. It's so true. And that's why we're all made beautifully.
Right? And there's no right or wrong. It just is different.
It just is.
And how you approach that person they need knowledge, you come to them with, I'm going to tell you all the knowledge you want to know.
Well, absolutely. I mean, look at it. Without blueprints, right? We wouldn't have police officers. We wouldn't have military. Right? We wouldn't have accountants or architects, right?
Right.
Without action, we wouldn't have the entrepreneurs and the race car drivers and the actors and actresses we wouldn't have all of those things. Nurturing. Could you imagine a world without nurturing? Oh my gosh, there'd be no love in the world.
There'd be no nurses. There'd be no,
Without knowledge, I mean, we wouldn't have the computer we're sitting on, the phones, the technology, the cars. We wouldn't have any of those things. So every one of us is unique, just like you said, right? We're all unique and special in our own way. And we were all made so that we can do these things. And when you can understand where people operate from and how to meet them where they are, now you've optimized yourself, you've optimized your life, and you're able to really utilize that and come together and make the world a better place.
And it helps you to sell better. And one of the classic examples is Tom Sawyer and getting all of his friends to paint the fence for him, you know? And what do you do? It's going to be fun, right? That's how we taught to, we're going to have fun. Now, how much fun do they really have? Who knows? I mean, I'm sure they were laughing and talking, but because he told them we're going to have fun. And the people, the kids are very much into that. I think some of us grow out of it, but the kids that he was approaching, because some kids walked away, like a kid like your son would be like, yeah, I don't care,
Right.
Now maybe if you're going to teach me something about how to paint the fence and tell me about how the paint is made and stuff like that, okay, he might have pulled him in. But to just go, oh, we're going to have so much fun painting the fence, but you're going to get people who, like, you can get them to do anything by telling them it's going to be fun. But then the person usually doing that is a very fun personality like yours, where they exude fun. And you can do something as boring as painting a fence and make it fun, because you can start little games with it. You're like, it can be fun because that's your main motivator is fun. And so you're going to find fun in anything you do, even if it's just something like, okay, one stroke down, a stroke up, and everybody do a different note as they do, we have a song. I don't know. I'm just pulling stuff out of my head, but like Tom Sawyer made it fun and everybody was enjoying it.
Absolutely.
And so it's knowing how to sell to your people.
Absolutely. It's the art and science of influence. How do you sell your products, your services, your ideas? How do you sell your partner on where you want to go on vacation? How do you sell your child on whether they should eat that piece of broccoli over the cookie? Like, every single human is in sales. And whether they're a mom, whether they're a dad, it doesn't matter. You're selling yourself every day on what you want to wear.
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So tell us how the cards work. How do you crack your code?
So we have different ways we can crack codes. One is, if we're in person, is the cards.
Okay.
Another way is on LinkedIn. We have technology where you can decode a profile in nanoseconds.
Wow.
We have a link where people can actually use that link to digitally sort these cards. And then they're given a full profile report. And on the back end, that person who gave them the link gets a full profile report and sales report. And it gives them the ability to truly understand, hey, what turns them on, what turns them off, what triggers them.
Are there questions?
It's just 4 cards. They literally just sort these 4 cards.
Okay.
And it tells you everything you need to know. You've unlocked humanity by sorting these cards. The first position shows how they show up dominantly, right? That's their dominant position. The second one plays a huge role of who they are. The third typically represents them under stress. And the fourth is typically what they stay away from.
That's pretty cool.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. So I already know that I'm an action, nurture, knowledge blueprint.
You have the same code as me.
Yeah. I'm kind of not surprised at that.
That's why we automatically click. We're like, yes, you are my person.
Our energies clicked, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When everything lines up, that's that person. Like, we've all gone into that meeting. We've met someone and we're like, oh my God, they're our person.
Right.
Like 3 seconds, you're like, yes, let's go have drinks, whatever. Right. But you've also gone into those meetings where you're like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not feeling it. Can't put my finger on it, but something's not right. It's because your values didn't align.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of times you can use this. I was in an airport once. I was one of these, I had 3 or 4 flights throughout the day, and I had a break in between, and I hadn't really talked to anybody that day. And I was like, I need to talk to somebody. And so I got my food, and then I looked around and I'm like, all right, where's the spring? So the spring is a nurturer. And I'm like, and there's a spring sitting by herself. And I'm like, bam, I just got my lunch date. So, because the spring will talk to you about anything all day, right? And they love talking to strangers. You would never go up to a blueprint or a knowledge and just start talking. They're like, you're invading their space. You're interrupting their brain waves. Like that's very claustrophobic for them. So I'm like, there's a spring and she's by herself. So I go up to her and I said, do you mind if I sit down with you? She's, yeah, sure. And we spent the next hour and a half talking. We had a lovely lunch. And then we both went and got our planes. You know?
Yeah.
Once you understand how to use this, you can use it to, even in a simple situation like, where do I sit on a plane? Do you want to talk or do you want to sleep?
What?
If you want to talk, you sit next to the action or the spring. You do an action or a nurture. If you don't want to talk, you sit next to the knowledge or the, and you can tell. I mean, like once you start working with it, you can tell it pretty quick. It's
Oh, for sure. We even do a speed coding course where we show people their backgrounds, Zoom background, their homes, their garages, like what are they wearing, all of those different things so that you can show them.
Because what people wear, what's behind them. I mean, your background, you've got all the cartoons. I mean, it's very clear fun is your thing.
Yeah,
you know?
right. Yeah.
And I've got some whimsy too. All the birds, it's a little different, but there's some whimsy there.
Absolutely.
And a blueprint, you're not going to see that. A knowledge, you're not going to see that.
Yeah. And so even like you mentioned the airport, right? Well, we had to go in and we had like a disaster happening. Our flight was delayed, whatever. Right. So when you go in and you look, hey, who do I want to talk to?
Right.
Who's going to help me solve my problem today?
Right.
All of those things come down to influence. When you unlock the secret, man, you're like, I can accomplish anything.
Yeah.
I actually went into Costco one time, right?
Yeah.
And me and my husband went there and we wanted the Blackstone grill. And I can build things. My husband chooses not to. But anyway, we go in and there was one grill left. And I was like, I'm going to get this one. And he was like, it's already the one that's built. And I was like, yeah. He was like, can you do that? I was like, I sure can. So I go over to the little guy at Costco and I was like, listen, can I get the one that's already built? And he was like, oh, you can't do that. And I said, well, if you could, how would that happen? Right? I've already coded him. I'm speaking his language. He was like, well, if there weren't any boxes back there, you might be able to. I said, okay. So I go over and sure enough, there's no boxes, right? I'm like, that's the last one. And he was like, let me check something. He types on his little computer and he goes, well, there's a shipment coming in. So technically we can't do that. And I was like, so who would I talk to? So he points, he goes, well, you could talk to this spinning names, the guy. And he was like, I said, so he'd be the best person to talk to. He goes, yeah, but he's not here today. And he's like, but Susan is, or whatever her name was, right? And I was like, cool. So I go back, she comes out. I'm like, speed coder. I like talk to Susan. Next thing you know, I'm walking out with a whole built grill, right? And I'm like, da-da-da. And all these people are coming over. My husband's like, how did you do that? The art and science of influence, honey. And all these people are coming over. And they're like, oh my God, how did you do that? Like, I didn't know you could get one already built. And I was like, you can't. So, but sure enough, there we go. Beautiful. Love it. I use it all the time.
Well, and a lot of people may be aware there's a psychology thing where you mimic what somebody's doing physically. So like if somebody's got their arms crossed, you cross your arms, and that makes them feel safe because it's a very unconscious thing where you feel like you're connected because you're doing the same physical movements that they are. And so this is kind of similar, but it's using how their brain waves work.
Well, right. And there's body language, there's tone, there's words, like all of the, even your animation, right? Like I'm super animated. Who knew? Right. But all of those things are all in the cards. Like that's, it tells you who you are,
And
which is,
even how people walk, there's a diff you can tell. I mean, if you're doing speed coding, you can tell by how somebody walks.
yeah.
It's very subtle, but it's definitely there.
Yeah. I mean, there's clues everywhere.
Yeah.
Just got to know how to look for them. And then you got to learn how to speak them, right? And
Right.
use them.
Because it's knowing it, but then being able to apply it. That's where that's where you got into trouble, is you knew the codes, but you didn't really know how to fully apply it.
Well, correct. So now I had my eyes open to like the colorful world, but I didn't know what to do with them. Like I was just winging it. And I was like, well, because again, like there's so much more. Like it seems so simple, and it is, right? It's simple system, easy to duplicate. Anyone can do it. We even have kids cards. So we can crack codes of 3 and 4-year-olds. We're in the
Wow.
yes. So
How
when
do you do that? Because well,
here, I'll show you because I have them here, but they have symbols on them, and they're even on the online piece. And I took them for a oh, here they are. I have cards everywhere. I never leave home without them, but they have symbols on them.
Okay.
Well, icon cards. And so you have the kids sort the cards just like you would have the adults, and you would be shocked at what.
So the kids sort the cards by the picture?
Yeah.
What pictures they're attracted to?
Exactly. So they all have little icons on them. And so they can sort the cards with the icons, right? And when you actually see like how your child is wired, if I would have had this when my kids were little, my life would have been completely different. It would have been completely different. I mean, everything that we did, even building Legos, like I was the tornado. I came in and I was like, let me build something, right? I couldn't sit there and do nothing. And so my oldest would be there with the instructions, going step by step, following everything. My youngest was like, he's AK, right? So he was like building in his own competition with himself. He was like, pop, 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 pop. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I would grab like a wheel, and my oldest would be like, what are you doing? And I was like, just going to put the little hubcap, even just the wheel inside the tire. And he was, it's not time for that. That's not in the steps. And I was like, this was prior to bank. I was like, what do you mean? Like, this isn't going to affect anything. Why do you care? Like, let me do something. And it caused chaos. So what started out to be fun ended up being a disaster. And so everybody was angry at the end of the day, and we didn't get to finish building the Legos. And of course, no one wanted to do it again.
Right.
But if I would have known that, like we did it after I learned bank, right? I got a Lego set. I was like, oh, let's check this out. And I'd just sit there and I'd be like, okay, well, what's the next step, Jay? What do you think? If you need me to take a step for you. Oh, yeah, sure, Mom. You know what? I'll do this one, and then you could do the next one, right? So when you shift your perspective, you shift your languaging, and you're able to truly understand, all of a sudden, everything's so much easier. Like me and my son now have the best relationship ever. Like we talk on the phone. We could never have, we were on the phone the other night for 45 minutes. Like that would have never happened if it weren't for the cards, if it weren't for me understanding and learning what I learned. That's why I went to level 5 certification, because I needed to master the skills, not just, get the basic fundamentals and be like, okay, I'm good. I needed to live it, because if I didn't, I would have never been able to have a relationship with my own child.
That's so cool. Do you see patterns in how couples attract as far as the bank code?
Oh yeah, for sure. Typically, your action and your blueprints attract, right?
Okay.
And then your nurturing and knowledge attract. Typically, right? Because they're polar opposites, and then they attack. So, like, my husband is high blueprint. So
Okay.
even simple things like us cooking in the kitchen together. When we before bank, right? We would be in the kitchen cooking, and I'd say, "What do you want me to do?" And he'd go cut the onions, and I'd say, "Okay, cool." And I'd chop up the onions real fast, hand it over to him, and then he'd rechop them, and I would be so angry, and I'd be like, "Why did I just waste my time? Like, what do you? Why did I do that?" Right? But it's the blueprint. He had a system. He had a process. So he would get the board, he would recut them, not because I did it wrong or because it was because that's his process. I mean, I once even gifts, different codes want different types of gifts.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I sent him a garage. He lived in New York. I lived in Pennsylvania. I flatbedded a garage to him. I thought that'd be a great gift. I think big gifts, right? And I was like, this is awesome. So I called him up and I was like, hey, honey, can you be home to get your gift tomorrow? And he was like, I'm working. That's what it's called, right? And I was like, he was like, can't they leave it? And I was like, they can't because they need to know where to put it and things like it's kind of big. And I was like, well, I was going to surprise you, but I guess I got to tell you, it's a garage, right? I was like, yes. And he goes, how much did it cost? And I was like, it was a gift. It didn't cost you anything. That's what makes it so great. Right? He goes, what if I need a permit? Who follows the rules, right? And I was like, oh, wow, this is turning out badly. He goes, I need to build a platform. It needs to have gravel and drainage. Like, I need time to plan. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is like the worst gift ever. Took him a while to adjust to the change, but he loves the garage now.
Yay.
But like something that simple. Like even with my oldest, I would buy gifts, like top brands. I spend all this money, and he'd be like, I'm going to the thrift store. And I was like, what? Like, not that there's anything wrong with that, but we were just coming from two different places.
We did Thanksgiving one year, and my ex liked to cook, and he says, sometime in October, I want to do Thanksgiving this year. I said, okay. And so I let the family know and everything. So we're going to do Thanksgiving. Okay, fine. So it was like the first week in November. And they think a lot, right? So I caught him in the middle of thinking or something. He's very deep in thought. And I said, so what are you thinking about? Well, I need to plan Thanksgiving. And I'm like, do you have the menu picked out? Yeah, I have the menu picked out, but I need to plan how I'm going to do it. And it literally took him the 3 weeks between, between the 1st of November and to plan it all out. Now me, it's like, okay, let's see. On the 20th, I figure out what the recipes are. I go to the grocery store, probably that Monday, not Wednesday. I don't want to go to the store on Wednesday at all. So I go make sure I have everything on Monday. And, Wednesday I cook what I can cook, and the rest I cook on Thursday. And like, it's comparatively little effort. I'm not thinking about what it's all going to be like. Okay, well, I already know we're going to use the china. Okay, fine. We're going to use the good silverware. Okay. I'll figure out how to decorate the table that day because that's what I do. I've got stuff, and I'll if I want to, I'll go find a store and buy something for it. But if I'm into the so I'm just like, I wouldn't know how to spend that long. He easily spent 5 or 6 hours planning, like, I'm going to make the mashed potatoes first. I'm going to put the bird in the oven at such and such a time. I'm going to do, and for me, it's like, okay, it's Monday. Family's coming over at 2. The bird needs X long. Okay. I don't
Oh yeah.
but it's just, and there are times when I needed that, because I'm like over here going, da, 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 I got all these balls in the air, and I'm like, I needed him to say, okay, this is what we do first.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's some good points of it. I mean, we're kind of talking about it's bad. It's not bad. There's times when I needed that. You need to put all your balls down and pick one. And, but it's just such a different way of thinking. And, I accepted it. This is who he is. And okay, he needs time to think. Okay, fine. You know, it just is. It's just so foreign to how I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm the same way. Like I literally Instacarted Thanksgiving food. So on Wednesday.
Oh.
I was like, here we
I
go.
hope you tipped him well.
I did, for sure, for sure. You saved me a lot of time, my friend.
I will not go to the store on a Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Oh no, not happening. And it
So
was
I know there's several programs. Can you tell us a little bit about your coaching program? And I know there's a program that you guys have to help you write copy.
oh yeah.
So can you get into some of that?
Sure. Yeah. Our coaching program, it's 13 weeks. It goes into 6 intelligences. So it helps people optimize their business and maximize their results. And it goes through everything from like personality intelligence to sales, emotional, business, artificial, and it ties it all together with spiritual on top. It's an amazing program. And then we have training programs. So there's fundamentals in sales, relationships, speed coding I mentioned earlier. The power scripting is the one that you're talking about. So like, hey, how would you sell this pen to each of the codes? And then how would you sell them to all 4? So it's mastering those skills of like living, speaking, writing in those codes. And then we have communication mastery as well. We also have certification programs and technology that people can have access to.
What are the 6 intelligences? That's new information for me.
So it starts with personality intelligence, and then we do sales intelligence, emotional intelligence, business intelligence, artificial, and then spiritual. AI.
I know what AI is, but how does that relate to us as human beings?
So we have products that are high tech, but they're high touch. So
Okay.
we have artificial intelligence that has empathy built in. And actually, Sherry Tree spoke at the United Nations for Artificial Intelligence for Good. So we bring the human into the technology.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the show's about woo, so as well. So tell me about spiritual intelligence.
So spiritual intelligence is finding your mission and your purpose and living to be your higher self. And that's really what that piece is all about. It's so powerful. And that's why they each one layers on top of each other.
Sure.
And that's why spiritual intelligence is it's the last intelligence that we cover.
Well, the others are easier to grasp.
Yeah, and it all ties together. So that's why it's layered the way that it is, and we focus on implementation, right? So we
Okay.
want people to actually implement that. So in that coaching program, it's coaching that intelligence, and then it's implementing the next week. So each one is layered that way, where we're actually showing you how to use this, why this is important.
I mean, this whole bank code is life-changing, 100%. Because once you understand how to code people and to speak to them on their level, or not so on their level, in their language. It's like the love languages. Everybody seems to know about love languages and what's your love language. And they're connected as well. And nurture is going to be high touch. An action might be like acts of service. That
gift.
could be a nurture too.
Yeah. So when you look at the love languages and you line up bank, it takes the love languages and puts it on steroids because each one requires something different. So, like, even an action nurturing is going to require different action knowledge, action blueprint. You see what I mean? So it takes it to that next level where now you're looking at that whole person and you're understanding, just like with my husband John, like me buying him a garage. Not a good call for him. He's nurturing blueprint first. So he loves things that are touching his heart, that you put a lot of thought into. And he loves more of a personal gift. And he's looking at the cost of it. Well, I didn't want you to spend that kind of money. So when you look at that whole thing, he'd rather just go out to dinner or hang out and spend time with me and know very far in advance that we're doing that. So it takes it to a whole new level where now you're.
And blueprints need that structure because, I mean, to somebody who's an action or nurture, like, oh, I want a surprise, I want the spontaneity. That's very big for us. But we have a scheduled date night every week. That is actually romance to the blueprint.
Absolutely.
They require that. They require that.
Oh, for sure. Well, even with my son, like I would be like, hey, let's go to lunch today. And he would automatically shoot me down. And I would take offense at, like, you don't want to hang out with me. Why don't you love your mom? What did I do wrong? Right. When he wanted to, but I didn't give him enough time to prepare for it.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of time with my kids that could have been so much easier, so much happier, so much more filled with joy. Like, even with my parents, like with my mom, if it weren't for this and me learning this, the last year of her life, I was actually able to spend time with her in a place where we understood each other.
Nice.
And I lost all of that time before because we just didn't understand each other. Life's too short. So if I could give the gift to anybody, this is what I would give them.
And it's not like you only have to communicate to them in their language, but it's by using their language, you're able to say, by the way, I need this. So you can say to your son, I respect that you need a week to think about having lunch with me, and we can put it on the calendar and you can be prepared or whatever. And then, but by you honoring that part of him, he also recognizes that, hey, mom's a spontaneous, action-oriented person, and she needs this too. So once they feel heard and understood, then it will come back as well.
Well, and that's the cool thing about it. So when I laid the cards out, he was actually able to understand that and be like, I get it. Like, this makes total sense, to the point where he would actually like joke. Shortly after that, I was supposed to go to lunch and I didn't know where I was supposed to go. The person wasn't like giving me any information, what time, like all of these things were going on. Right. And at one point I was like stressed out. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Right. And Jay looks at me and he goes, that's funny. If they're that late and that, like, to stress you out about it, you don't care about those things. It's got to be bad. I'm like, well, it's been like an hour. Like, I hate wasting my time, whatever. But he actually started, when he came home from school after that, listening to my trainings and getting that understanding for it. But I'm the one who's trained in it, right? So I tell everybody what my code is. I crack their code. That's what I do. The first time, it could be a waitress or a waiter or, somebody at the store. It doesn't matter. I carry my cards with me all the time and I crack codes. And I tell people what my code is. It's not a secret. I want them to know.
Right.
But I'm the one who's trained in it. So I need to be able to adapt and shift and give this world a place where everyone's seen, heard, and understood.
Yeah.
It's my job.
And it's very powerful. It's very, very, very powerful. When I learned it a little differently, but when I learned it, it changed my life completely.
Yeah.
Changed my life completely. How I looked at, instead of just like, okay, this person's annoying me. Well, are they really annoying me? Or are they just being themselves? And, you know, not that that doesn't annoy me, but yeah, it's, they just, I mean, my husband and I lasted 21 years. And probably if I didn't accept him you know, for who he was, I recognized that he needed more time with stuff, and it was like, okay, we got this. I know how to work this. Um,
Yeah, for sure. And when my life was spiraling out of control at one point, I was living in the back end of my code. My core values shifted because I was trying to survive.
right.
And so I had friends saying, "You're not the same person. What's wrong with you?" And I was like,
I'm in survival mode.
right. But how do you explain that? I thought I was just broken. Like I didn't know what was going on. Like what's wrong with me? I'm not the same. But I was grabbing onto what I needed to try to survive.
It's kind of hard to be focused on fun when you don't know where your next meal is coming from.
Right. So when you start to look at that and you start to understand, why when people come home and they're shifted into stress or wherever they are, you can meet them there instead of automatically just taking offense to it. Like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? So it just changes. It changes the way the world is. And imagine if every single human in the world could understand bank and understand people. What would the world look like?
Be amazing. Absolutely amazing.
So our mission is to crack 8 billion codes.
And what I love is how simple it is to crack a code.
Yeah.
Because I was interesting that a 3 or 4-year-old would have the awareness of themselves at that level, but the pictures kind of make sense. There's different activities on the pictures that what do I like to do, and but it's very easy to diagnose yourself, I guess is a good word. It's very easy to crack your own code because it's what's your value, you know,
Right. Well, and when
and
you
you
look
know
at,
that,
yeah, and self-awareness that's the first step. Like
right?
and when people used to ask me like, what are my values or what's important to me, I always say the same thing, right? Faith, family, work. I don't know. That was basically it. I had no
Right.
idea. But this made it super simple to be like, oh yeah. Oh, that's why I do that. Oh, interesting. Well, shoot. You're like, this is eye-opening. I can't believe it. Oh my God, I'm not broken. This is completely normal.
And I did have a time where I had a lot of life hit me, and I was an action person, and then I was suddenly a knowledge person or blueprint person. It was like my whole speed went like dramatically down, like you were talking about. It's like, wait, this isn't me. And I had somebody who'd only met me since the event, and she's like, Jeanette, you're not an action person. You're a knowledge person. I'm like, no, I'm not. Yes, I am right now. Because that was the only way I could get through that moment. Was any action I took felt dangerous. And I needed to get the knowledge to how do I go through this? How
Yeah.
do I process all this information of this life event that happened to me? And it was several life events that happened one after another. And it was, how do I process this information? And, so for a while there, I was like, I don't know me. I'm like, this is not me.
Right.
I don't like this. This is what I have to be in this moment. But I didn't like who I was being at the time. And, now it took a little while to heal, but it's healed. And I'm like, I feel like me again. But when we, like you said, we have all four of these, and what comes in is what you need in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. We're made beautifully. God made us with the tools we needed, right? So we can tap into them, just like going to the gym, build up the muscles, build up your code. That's the goal when you start to do training with bank, is to optimize yourself in all 4 areas.
Hey, Mark, you got a question?
No, fascinating conversation. I was listening to y'all as I was getting ready to go to my job and everything, and I was thinking, wow, this bank system could actually work in job environments and everything like that. Because you have people of varying personalities, and they aren't always the same type of personality. So as Michelle was talking, I was going like, even in a nonprofit, and I work at a artistic nonprofit, it might be fascinating to know the different types, because I do know that there are some builders and there are some other people that are more nurturing, and there are the various other types that y'all were talking about. So I was thinking to myself that it can work in both the work environment and even in family situations, because I told you a couple of weeks ago we had that celebration of my aunt's 80th, and there were definitely people that even had within their own family conflicts, and it probably would have been interesting if I knew their different personality types and all along those lines, but I don't know those personality types. So I guess my quick question is, have you used this system even when you've gone to family outings? We just came out of Thanksgiving, people are getting ready to go to Christmas and everything like that. So Michelle, have you used this system when you've been put in family dynamics?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things I tell people when they start working with me is the first step, crack your family's code. Because when you can start to associate people and see how those codes show up, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, wait a second. That reminds me of Aunt Sally. Oh, I see it. Right. So people love it. It's about them. It's not about me. It's like a game. Mm-hmm. So when you're in those family situations, man, bust out the cards and I'm like, yeah, you know what, guys, can you do me a favor? And they sort the cards. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get it. Yep. Makes total sense.
Yeah, I could definitely see that and see how that could be working, because actually some of the families, that might even work better than others. Because if I told Jeanette, which actually surprised us this Thanksgiving, I come from a family of gamers, not in the sense of being gamblers or stuff like that, but just doing the family game dynamics. So we'll oftentimes play spinners, which is like dominoes and all along those lines. And back in the day, we used to play Scrabble. And as I was just telling Jeanette before you came on, I just recently went out and bought Go Durham, which is Durham Monopoly, because there is a monopoly for just about every city. So there's probably a Pennsylvania monopoly, there's probably a California monopoly, or the different cities. But I went to I think it was Walgreens yesterday, and saw a whole stack of them, and I was like, oh, this doesn't look like it's too expensive, and it can be something to break out the game nature, because games are very much a part of that family dynamic as well.
That's awesome. I love it. And yes, it works in any situation, nonprofit world, anywhere you're working with humans. Even dogs have codes.
Oh,
yeah, it's fascinating. My dog, she's in the other room right now, but she has my exact code. Now, I had an old English bulldog who passed last year. She was like 16, one of the oldest bulldogs ever. She actually had my oldest son's code. So she was blueprint knowledge all day, every day. Like, she didn't want love. She didn't want you to touch her. Every once in a while, she'd get close enough just to be like, what's up? And you'd go to pet her and she'd be like, meh. she would literally bark continually at 5 o'clock every day to get food. And she would put herself to bed every night at the exact same time.
That's so funny.
But
that's so funny.
That is crazy. I know we heard down and everything, but Michelle, just really quickly, I imagine that there are probably some, in the animal world, there are probably some animals that don't fit the code that you would think that they would. Because I know that if I think of, and I'm not just saying me because I haven't had one of these, but my brother has a dog, and actually the dog did something unusual during Thanksgiving. It literally, and my brother's suffering from some certain diseases, and it started like cuddling near my brother. So it started adapting that kind of nurturing personality and all along those lines. But I know that dogs oftentimes are nurturers. That's why a lot of them are guide dogs. But a lot of times we don't think of cats as being nurturers, because oftentimes they're seen as being aloof. But I imagine there are probably nurturing cats as well. But I could be wrong.
Nope, you're absolutely spot on, Mark. Yep.
So I want you to plug yourself. How do we work with you? How do we find you?
You can find me on social media. You can connect with me anywhere, and I'm all over. So Michelle Lee, Myrter, and you'll find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. And
tell me what your program looks like.
so I have training programs and coaching programs. And right now, Sherry Tree, the one who created this, is doing a masterclass, 4 hours of training with the top world sales trainer. And she's doing it next week, the 17th, and the following week as well on the 27th. So 4 hours with Sherry Tree, and you could come for free.
Oh, well, send me that link. I want to do that.
Okay.
And I don't know if the chat holds on here, but why don't you, is it a website you can give?
Well, they can actually just reach out to me and I will come up with that.
All right.
Yeah. So I'll put do you want me to put my contact in there?
Yeah. Go ahead and say your website. I don't know if the chat goes through on the replays, but go ahead and say your website, and then, or if it's social media you want to go through.
Yeah, they can go through social media, and I'll put a link in
There's
here.
There's not too many murders out.
Yeah.
It's you've got a good name for that. So
well, and I'll actually put in here too the oh wait, do I have to do that? I'll put in the chat the link so they can all crack their code and get a free report.
Awesome.
I can make that happen. I got to connect. Who knew? All right, here we go.
I can't see the chat because for some reason on my computer, it's like 0.3 type, and that's not something I can read.
Well, it's not letting me, so I'll have to do it again. There's an error somewhere.
Oh, there it goes.
I can put it.
Just went.
That was in the private chat. Okay, I'll put it in there. Mark said. There we go. So I put that in there, and
cool.
Perfect. Well, this has been so much fun.
I'm so grateful you came on. Thank you very much. I really love what you're doing. It really is life-changing. So if you enjoyed what you did today, you definitely got to talk to Michelle. It will change your life.
Oh, thank 100%. You. I appreciate it. And Jeanette, if anyone needs any interior design work, she is amazing. Reach out to her.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, we got it. We got a code at the bottom. Very cool. Thank you, Mark. So, all right. So we always like to end our show with Can Do Spice, because these are all healthy spices. She believes in a lot of things I believe in, and I like to promote her. So welcome to some Can Do Spice. Maybe not.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.